Hi and welcome to One Patriots Place, brought to you by the E2G Sports Network, with me, Clazzy Clare Cooper, and him, Thomas Murphy. And thank you for listening. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe if you have downloaded on podcast. So once again, it is Tuesday, folks. It is still the off season, and it's still free agency. So we welcome in NFL writer / reporter of A2Z Sports and Patch Chat podcast, apologies, the very smart and the rather charming Doug Kyard. Doug, welcome back to the show. How are things with you?
I'm doing great, Claire. Good to see you again, Murph. Things are going well over here.
How's the family? How the kids?
They're doing great.
Looking
Just
forward to Easter. The
oh
Easter
yeah, look
bunny
forward to
is coming.
Easter, egg hunting, all that fun
Oh,
stuff. Hallie turns 2 in a week from today,
oh my
so
God.
lots of exciting stuff going on in the Kite household right now.
Oh my God. That's so cool. So she shares a birthday with my wife,
Oh,
who's going
nice.
to turn 25 again in a few short days. We don't celebrate her birthday. We just celebrate the anniversary of her 25th. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But no, thank you for making the time to be here with us today. But um, the big story, around the area right now is the Patriots spending money on special teams, and and I take umbrage with a lot of the takes around. Last year, special teams cost this Patriots team at least two victories and a couple of important ones. Do you think that this is money well spent? I think in the big scheme of things, it's a very small percentage of the cap.
Yeah, I think it's totally fine, and I think that after last year, there did have to be a correction, and obviously they still need to now find a punter
Yeah,
after
that'd
releasing
be
Jake
nice.
Bailey, and it seems like that's probably going to come through the draft, just because they really can't put themselves in the same position they did last year, where I think honestly in a few positions they lack depth. Obviously, you can't have depth at punter, but after Jake Bailey went down, then they have to sign Michael Pilardi, and it was a
Yep.
little bit shocking to me that they never then readjusted and maybe tried to find someone better than Michael Pilardi, because he
Yep.
was one of the worst punters in the NFL last
Yeah.
year. And I think the same thing could kind of be said about offensive tackle last year too, where they got so low at that position that they had to, sign Connor McDermott off the Jets practice squad, and
Right.
and they've kind of readjusted there too as well. But no, I mean, I like the Chris Board signing. I like the fact that they brought back Cody Davis because he
Yep.
missed time last year, and it just seems like on paper this special teams unit will be significantly better than it was last year. Just based on the guys coming back, the additions that they've made, and like I said, now they just need to find the punter, which is, you know, maybe the most important. I mean, I
Right.
guess like kicker, kicker and punter are probably the two most important roles on special teams. But the fact that the Patriots punter also kicks off just makes it that much more important.
Right. It really does. Do you find it surprising that Cam McCord is still the special teams coordinator for this team?
Maybe a little bit. I do think that a lot of the struggles that they had the last 2 years, you hate to pin it on one person, but I think a lot of it can be pinned on Jake Bailey. He just did not punt nearly as
True.
well
Yeah.
in 2021 and 2022 as he did in the previous 2 years. So I think that, there's maybe only so much that Cam McCord could do. I think the Patriots special teams was actually still good in 2020 after Joe Judge left. So maybe
Yep.
that's what they're kind of banking on. And I do think that now that Joe Judge doesn't have to coach quarterbacks and help run the offense, he can contribute more on special teams. And I think that we'll probably wind up seeing that in practice.
Good.
Doug, you mentioned. Oh, sorry, go on, Mark.
No, 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 no. On to you.
You mentioned the O line just a moment ago. I mean, how are you feeling right now about the O line? I read your latest on like the depth chart,
Mm-hmm.
and so left tackle. I wanted to ask you, left tackle at 14 is still something that you're kind of projecting, and later guard and center for anyone who hasn't read it. And if
Mm-hmm.
you haven't, please do go out there and read it. I mean, how are you feeling about the O line, sort of other than wanting to take it at 14, and specifically Trent Brown? Do you foresee him still being on the Patriots when we kind of come to roster up in September?
I do. He had some guaranteed money due in his contract, I think, pretty shortly after the new league year. So they could still free up cap space by releasing him, but ultimately I think that it probably makes more sense to keep him around unless, they do draft their future left tackle in the first round and that player decisively beats out Trent Brown to the point where it might become, an awkward situation or something like that once the season begins. Then maybe you see Trent Brown either traded or released. But, at least on paper right now, it does look like Trent Brown's going to be the left tackle. Riley Reif will be the right tackle. And then they've got, Calvin Anderson, Connor McDermott, Yannick Just as those depth guys. So I think that, they could put an offensive line on the field right now with those guys that they have. I just think that they do still need to plan for the future at one of those tackle spots, whether it's left tackle or right tackle. And I do think that it would make the most sense to use a high pick because that's really the best way to find, that player of the future. But I do think I'm a little bit concerned, I guess I would say, about the interior offensive line depth as well, because behind Cole Strange, Michael Onwenu, and David Andrews, it's basically James Ferentz. Like, unless the Patriots think that one of those tackles can slide over to guard or maybe even center, or if they have a lot of faith in guys that we didn't see a lot of last year, Cody Russi, Chasen Hines. I don't know. I mean, how many years in a row can you depend on James Ferentz to be your top interior offensive line? And I mean, like, I say that, but in 2021, the Patriots valued offensive line depth so much that they had Ted Karras, David Andrews. Was that the year that they franchise tagged Joe Tooney? Yep. They had Michael Onwenu as a backup. Like, they had so much interior line depth that year. So I do still think that there could be a move coming either in free agency or in the draft for a guard center hybrid to be a better backup than Ferentz.
What about you can't throw around Ted Karras around here because it makes me cry when.
One of my favorites, Ted Karras. Oh yeah.
Oh no, we're getting emotional in the first 10 minutes here, people. We're getting emotional in the first 10 minutes.
It could be worse. It could be the first 10 minutes and tight end. So
I will say Ted Karras, the most personable player in the locker room to the media that I saw in my. I started covering the team in the locker room in like late 2012. Like, absolutely the most willing to have a conversation about absolutely anything with absolutely anyone. So yeah, he's got a lot of fans in New England.
Yeah,
that makes it even worse.
I know. I'm sorry.
Because he was so lovely as
well. From talking gap lead backer to chess, it was just he would sit down and talk with you. This is what I've heard, that he would sit down and talk with you about anything. Just a brilliant man.
Yep.
And it showed on the football field in a way that you really just see. Linemen are smart, people. We're smart. Sticking on that vein, bud, I have had a huge crush on Peter Skronsky for years now. All right, for years.
You might want to get that looked at, man.
We're talking about guys that are interchangeable and can play multiple positions, and we all know how much Bill loves that. Now, Skronsky is a left tackle, but he's somebody that's been projected as an inside guy. Could you see that if he falls, and I do think he would have to fall, if he falls, would it be a mistake for Bill to pass on him?
I think so. I think he's a good fit in New England too, because the reason why he could fall potentially is because if teams view him as a left tackle, the arm length just isn't really there. I think, 32? Like, Isaiah Wynn was shorter than Peter Skronsky, but Skronsky's got shorter arms.
Still shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, not currently on a team, so I guess we could talk about him maybe in the past tense right now. But no, he'll catch on somewhere. But no, I think that that could be a reason why it would fall, because maybe a team doesn't want to value him as a guard in the top 13 picks, and maybe teams that need tackles don't like the length and have issues there, and I think that could be an issue. But I do think that wouldn't be as much of an issue in New England, and it is a situation where, I don't think you love the idea of having to kick him inside, just because I think ideally you want to extend Michael Onwenu this offseason. You've got Cole Strange on the first round rookie contract, so he's going to be here for a while. So I do think that you have to make sure that you're getting a tackle when you're picking there. But yeah, I mean, the concern right now is whether one of those top 3 tackles is even going to be there at number 14 for the Patriots. And in a lot of mock drafts, I know they don't mean everything, but those tackles are going before the Patriots are picking.
There you go. Do you have somebody in mind at the tackle position, without giving away, your mock draft that you have posted up that we hope everybody goes over and checks out?
No one in. I don't think there's a best fit. I honestly might think that Peter Skronsky is the best fit, just because he's the best player there. But no, I think that I think that Broderick Jones or either one of those guys would fit as well. I think that I'm not quite sure which way the Patriots would be leaning there with one of those players, but I do think that any of those would be a smart pick. And I don't know, the 2 positions that I really like at number 14 are tackle and cornerback, just because I do think that, tackle is just such a need of the future, and cornerback, I mean, I still think they need it. Yeah, I think they need a starting caliber cornerback. I think that they could maybe get by with Jack Jones, Jonathan Jones, and Marcus Jones, but there's not a lot of depth there right now.
Right.
I think you'd prefer to have Jonathan Jones playing either in the slot or potentially even like at free safety or something, rather than outside. Sean Wade doesn't seem ready to be playing outside. And even Jack Jones, like, I liked what Jack Jones did last year, but he didn't play a full-time role on defense last year. Marcus Jones didn't play a full-time role on defense last year. So you're really banking on those guys playing as well as they did in their top moments last year. And with Jack Jones, I don't think it's a long-term concern or anything like that, but he also had the suspension at the end of last year, which obviously was not a great sign for a young player who started off the season really hot. So, I mean, I would almost say that there's no certainty at the cornerback position right now for the Patriots, which obviously a draft pick doesn't add certainty there, but it at least adds another layer of, all right, one of these guys is going to work out, like 3 of these guys is going to work out. At least you're hitting on a higher percentage there.
There you go. Go ahead, Claire.
Talking defense, while we're on the topic, I mean, I adore this D line, and the Patriots have brought back literally the entire line from last season. It makes me kind of tingly, actually. I mean, do you have any issues with the D line? Well, it's true.
It's so much fun working with you. It really is. It's just so much fun.
Thank you. That's so nice. But it's true. When I read it, I was like, oh, that makes me a bit tingly, because they were so good. But no, Doug, does it? I'm sure it doesn't make you feel tingly, so I'm not going to throw that out there. So, it's completely fine if you don't feel tingly about it. However, do you have any issues with the D line? Does kind of like, should I be concerned in my tingliness that there's someone to worry about in regards to that?
No, personally, no tingles, but I do not have an issue with the defensive line in general. I think that even like last year, it was kind of surprising that Daniel Ekuale wound up playing more snaps than Christian Barmore. And that was even after Ekuale started the season with a suspension. So I think that as well as the defensive line played last year, you could even see a boost if Christian Barmore plays better in year 3 than he did in year 2, or takes on more snaps, makes more of an impact. So I think that it's a really solid group, but it's also one where you could still see a boost from Christian Barmore. And just, in that position group as a whole, like, it's tough to determine. Excuse me, I've been sick for like 2 weeks, and I think I'm finally getting over it.
Me too. Oh my God, the whole family.
Yeah, no, same thing here.
It's the sickness that will not end.
No, it's like finally I was like feeling fine, but I just had like one weird symptom. Finally went to the doctor yesterday, got some antibiotics, so I'm like, I'm getting through it. But I think that with the defensive line in general, like if you throw in edge defender, if you throw in like, do you want one more pass rusher?
Right.
I do think that would be one addition that you would make, because they did bring in Andrew Van Ginkel and Trey Flowers as visits, free agent visits. I think that you could still see a move there, just because, obviously you've got faith in Dietrich Wise and Matthew Judon. Josh Uche had a big year last year. Anthony Jennings is kind of that like edge setting, run defending, edge defender, and maybe they get something out of Ronnie Perkins this year. But I do still think that it would be helpful to have one more rotational veteran piece in there. Maybe he doesn't even necessarily wind up making the roster, but it's one more guy to throw in there in camp, see what he can do. And, if he can make an impact, then we'll see. But I do think that you'd like to see some competition maybe for Anthony Jennings, for Ronnie Perkins, for some of those guys a little bit lower on the depth chart.
Speaking about Barmore, you said you weren't nervous. I am nervous. The injuries the nagging injuries seem to be adding up with him. Do you think that this might be a reason he slid down into the second round? Is people thinking about this, what he went through while he was at Alabama, the amount of time that he spent on the field? And is that something that the Patriots should worry about going forward?
I don't know. It has been a little bit concerning to see him get a little bit banged up in the first 2 years of his career. I still don't fully know why he slid down draft boards. I think that, it might have just been positional value more than really anything else. And, there wasn't a lot of great defensive line prospects in the draft in 2021. But no, I mean, it is a slight concern. I just still think that he's such a talented player that, the upside there, it's still there. Like, he can still be a really great player for the Patriots. And I think you would just like to see him take that next step, because I don't think that we saw it last year. And I think that, that was maybe one of last season's slight disappointments, is that he wasn't a high impact player in year 2.
There you go. Go ahead, Clark.
Whilst we're talking defense, if I can, because I've just seen there's a bit of a
it's your show.
Bit of a breaking news. It doesn't exactly matter to the Patriots, but a bit of breaking news. Dante Hightower has officially called it a career.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well.
Ooh. I thought he'd signed somewhere recently. No, Stephon Gilmore. My bad.
Gilmore got traded. Gilmore was traded to Dallas.
That was what I was thinking.
And I'm still getting a chuckle out of this, because Stephon Gilmore is playing football for less money than the Patriots offered him that he turned his nose up at. It's really funny out there.
To that Eagles player. Oh.
Is it C.J. Gardner-Johnson?
Thank you. I knew that there was a double barrel there, and it was like, oh, it's not going to come. It's not going to come. Yeah, he turned down the money from the Eagles and then found that the market wasn't kind of as rich as he wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Actually, that isn't on my list of questions, but because this has all come up, do you think that is a really different trend that we've seen this year? Positions have suddenly really kind of shifted when it comes to value, or do you think it's just a reflection of how really good this draft class is?
I think it mostly, I've been shocked by some of the prices in free agency personally. I think that they've been much lower than a lot of people have projected. Jacoby Myers was a good example of that, only signing for $11 million. Patriots got some good values, in my opinion, on Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki and some other guys. So that's been a surprise to me.
Just signed. Sorry, I'd have a moment.
The tackle market was still hot. Like Mike McGlinchey still signed for a lot. Jawan Taylor, I was shocked, $20 million a year.
Oh my God.
Orlando Brown was actually less than I expected. I wouldn't have, at $16 million a year.
He took less to play left.
Right. I wouldn't have hated the Patriots being in on that.
No.
If they knew that was going to be a possibility. Like, if they knew that Orlando Brown was going to sign for $16 million a year, I don't know this. I haven't talked to anyone about this or anything like that. But then maybe you do release Trent Brown and then sign Orlando Brown or something just to get that guy in there.
Move Trent back over to the right.
Right, and then don't sign Reef.
That was my beautiful plan right there, was to sign to Orlando and move Trent back over to the right where he was much happier.
Definitely. No, but there's been some values in free agency, and I think there still could be. I don't have a great list of players still available out there right now. I should go through that for some Patriots fits, but I think that there's still some values out there for the Patriots and for other teams, and just in general, some of the prices, yesterday, Dalton Schultz signed a one-year contract for $9 million, or up to $9 million. So that's going to wind up coming in even less than $9 million. And it's that's a really good player signing for a pretty short-term contract.
Yes.
And I don't know, Claire, I know you love the tight ends. Tight ends, they need a market reset. It's just insane how low tight ends are being paid around the NFL,
Right?
given how important they are to offenses and the sport and everything in general. Like, they need that Travis Kelce, George Kittle type player, but for him to be like 24 years old and hitting free agency and to sign like a $25 million contract or a $30 million contract somewhere, because that's the only thing that's going to reset the tight end market. When you've got the top guys making less than almost every starting wide receiver around the NFL, then the next tier is just not going to get paid much. And obviously it worked out for the Patriots to get Mike Gesicki on a value, but I just feel bad for that position as a whole because they're so important to offenses.
Murph, it's official. I love Doug. He's like one of our number one guests. He needs to come on all the time. This is brilliant. I am absolutely loving this completely.
Oh no!
Completely.
Oh no!
Completely.
Thank you for finally joining the We Love Doug Kite train. But yeah, there more cuts are going to be coming, in the coming months. And do you think that, there's a lot being said right now about how much cap space the Patriots still have and they're not spending this money? Can you see, is Bill waiting in the weeds to see who gets cut by whomever and then may make it through waivers and, they pick up in typical Bill fashion on the cheap?
Yeah, I could certainly see that happening, or like I said, like maybe they wait out free agency now until like the comp pick formula. I don't know. Like I think that there's still some players out there. I would say that I'm putting together a piece right now, and in it I kind of evaluated what happened in 2021 with the free agent class, and I wouldn't say it certainly wasn't like a disaster for the Patriots. They still wound up with Devon Godshaw, Matthew Judon, Hunter Henry, but like Jalen Mills getting cut, Nelson Aguilar is a free agent, Jonnu Smith getting traded for a 7th-round pick. It hasn't. You don't win. You don't build a sustainable winning team in free agency. So, that gets my point here, where the Patriots have $14 million in cap space right now.
Yeah,
they'll probably wind up, I would say, like heading into the season with around like $7 or $8 million, just because that's what they like to do. But next year, they have the 3rd highest cap space in the league. They've got $144 million. And like, obviously, usually that's a great thing to go into a year with a ton of cap space.
Yep.
But that, to me, tells a little bit more about the talent on the Patriots roster. And I wouldn't necessarily want them to go into the 2024 offseason being like, all right, we've got $150 million like to spend in free agency. Let's see who we can get. Because after this year, we saw that good players aren't really hitting free agency anymore.
No.
So what I would hope that they do, maybe even to lower the cap space this year, and then take from the future, is to extend Michael Onwenu, extend Kyle Duggar, extend Josh Uche, like extend some of these guys that extend Ramondre Steele, like whoever it might be, build up the talent on your own roster, continue to draft well, and maybe just pick at pieces in free agency, but you can't rebuild your whole team in free agency. That's what the Patriots kind of proved 2 years ago.
I'm crossing off question 7 right now because that was it. Who do you think that the Patriots should extend this year?
Yeah,
before they get all the money next year. For a decade now, all we've heard is the fact that players come in here, they play out their first contract, and then Bill lets them walk out the door. And you hear on, the talking head shows between 2 and 6 p.m. that, Bill can't draft because if he could, why doesn't he pick up these options? Why doesn't he extend anybody? And usually it was because he needed the cap space and somebody was going to overpay them out there.
Right.
So but no, you hit on some fantastic names. I would really love to see Duggar here for another 4 or 5 years, and to extend him now, and some of the other guys that you mentioned, I think would be brilliant. So go ahead, Claire. I've got to figure out which order my questions are going to be in now.
Well, because you mentioned contract extensions, and you didn't mention someone who I'm hoping that they do, but obviously time will tell, that kind of thing, is Hunter Henry, because he finishes out his deal. Mike Gesicki, as you mentioned, he's only on a 1-year deal. So at the end of at the end of 2023, they don't technically have any tight endage in the cupboard unless they extend, of course. So for me, this draft, even though that they've brought in Gesicki, even though, you know, he's a top talent at tight end, and they've got Hunt Henry, they haven't planned for the future. And they had this problem, however many years ago it was now, because I'm not very good at math at the top of my head. When Gronk left, their tight endage cupboard was quite bare. They had to bring in Ben Watson. Kind of, he was about to retire, but he didn't, because he did one more year for them. And they had Matt Lacoste, who just wasn't at full health at all. So do you think that even though you look at the roster now and say, well, they've got Hunter Henry and they've got Mike Gesicki, why would you even look at a tight end with the talent that's in this draft class? As I've heard being saying over and over again, it's the best talent that has been seen probably in about a decade. Is it just too risky for them to go too low, too late in the game when it comes to tight end? Do you believe that they've kind of really got it? They've still got to sort of approach this draft as tight end as a need?
I think they do. I mean, obviously they don't need to as an immediate need. And I will say that, you know, kind of to the point that we were just making, next year, like Mike Gesicki's going to be a free agent again. Dalton Schultz is going to be a free agent again. There's going to be other free agent tight ends. And, you know, like maybe they do. If I think that it would be smart to draft a tight end within the first, say, 4 rounds, just because this is a solid draft at tight end. I don't love the idea of drafting a tight end at 14th overall, even though there could be some players worth it in that spot, just because, I mean, unless you are guaranteeing that you're going to get Rob Gronkowski or Travis Kelce or George Kittle, like it's just not worth it in that spot. They're like,
and
there's the
there's
top
never
tier
a
of
guarantee. There's never a guarantee with this position.
Yeah.
How many first round busts can you at tight end can you name in the last 10 years?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, even TJ Hawkinson, who's a good player, like, was he worth a top 15 pick?
No.
Probably not, right? Certainly Noah Fant wasn't worth a first round pick and all these guys. So, yeah, maybe second, third, or fourth round, take a tight end, see what you can develop there. But I also, you know, like I said, like, I wouldn't be that nervous if you head into the offseason without a tight end, because then you can sign Dalton Schultz for $8 million. You can sign whoever is out there for $5 or $6 million, just because the position has become so undervalued. And, you know, once again, not to harp on the 2021 free agency class, but like the Patriots did actually wind up overpaying for 2 tight ends there, and Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at the contracts now and what they wind up paying those guys, like, it probably was a slight miss. I think it could make sense to extend Hunter Henry, but the tricky part is that I don't know if he's going to take a contract that is kind of now within the realm of what tight ends are signing. I think he'd probably want to say, like, hey, I'm making $12.5 million a year. Yeah, extend me for $12.5 million a year.
Yep.
Whereas the Patriots might be like, well, Dalton Schultz is making $8 million a year. Like, let's extend you for $8 million a year. So that might be the tricky part, is finding the right, you know, figure there to extend him at.
There you go. A little less money, a little more guarantee. That's the way I like to look at things. While we're talking about tight endage, and since Claire didn't bring it up, one of my huge crushes this year is Washington, the kid out of Georgia.
Yep.
He's huge. How can you not have a huge crush?
What this team is really lacking, even with these two, is, I mean, you're not asking Mike Gesicki to block.
Nope.
That's not what you're doing. This kid is a monster, you know, in line. He's somebody that is going to be a nightmare matchup for any linebacker in football right now. Do you see him as a fit here, and where do you think the Patriots would be able to grab him? In a lot of mocks, I see him going early second round. Would Bill consider doing that? Maybe trading back up in the second round like he did a few years with Barmore?
Yeah, no, I could see that. Or maybe trading. Like I said, I mean, I don't love a first-round tight end, but you might need to grab him at the end of the first round. Like, maybe you trade down from the first-round pick, you know, or you trade up from the second-round pick, one of those two things. But, yeah, that seems to kind of be the range that he's going at, somewhere between, like, 25 and 45, you know, somewhere around there. But, no, I think he would be a great fit. I think that he still has, you know, upside as a pass catcher as well. I'm not sure if he's going to be Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, George Kittle as a pass catcher, but he's going to be a great blocker. You certainly have faith in him there. And that's, sneakily one of the Patriots' bigger needs on their roster right now is a tight end who can block, because before last season, Hunter Henry spent most of his offensive snaps in the slot.
Right.
Before last season, Mike Gesicki spent most of his offensive snaps in the slot or split out wide. And last year that shifted for both players for one reason or another. For Gesicki, because he was in a new offense and it didn't go that well for him. Hunter Henry, just because he was getting snaps over Jonnu Smith. He was kind of forced into that inline role. I thought he asserted himself pretty well.
Yeah.
But he's still a 6'5", 250-pound tight end. He's not a 6'5", 265-pound tight end. So he's just not going to be that elite blocker that you need in there. And I would rather maybe take a risk on a guy like Darnell Washington early in the second round, rather than just signing the Eric Tomlinson type, only a blocking tight end, not going to contribute anything in the passing game, just another guy to put out there. But one other thing I would say is that, the Patriots did invest money in Calvin Anderson. Maybe they do just wind up using a sixth offensive lineman in those situations that they need them if they don't wind up getting a rosterable blocking tight end.
There you go.
Two more questions before we move away from the tight endage, because one I've got linked to what you've just talked about, and we've got one in the chat. So just two more questions, and then we will move on.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, but in regards to Washington, he's become Murph's big crush, even though Murph was anti-tight end a few weeks ago, really, and was getting cross with me for talking about it. No, they can't take one. It's true, you were, but no, he's really kind of.
I didn't want one at 14. Don't put words in my mouth.
You didn't want one in the first 4, be honest. But anyway, because Murph's developed his Washington crush, quite rightly, and I think the combine really displayed his skill set significantly. Yep. I'm really curious what you think, and this is quite personal for me, really, and just a bit selfish for me to ask. But Michael Mayer was the number one tight end coming into this. Before the combine, coming in towards the draft, he was going to be the number one. Do you think that Washington has really flipped the script in who is actually maybe going to be taken first when it comes to tight ends?
I don't necessarily think so. I think that it could still be Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. He didn't have as great maybe of a combine as some of the other tight ends. We saw some really athletic tight ends. Obviously, Darnell Washington was one of them. And, a lot of those tight ends really flashed in the 40 and the 3-cone and pass catching, everything like that. But I think that when the dust settles, I think it still could wind up being Michael Mayer right there at the top of the draft. Yep. So that's another one, though, where I
love Sam Laporta too.
Yeah, Sam Laporta and the guy at Utah is at Kincaid. There's a lot of good tight ends. So it might not necessarily have to be Mayer. It might not have to be Darnell Washington that they wind up taking. There's so many athletic pass catching tight ends who can also contribute as blockers. And I think Laporta would be a really good fit if he winds up dropping to the third round. If there's enough tight ends that some of these tight ends start dropping, you can never really go wrong. It seems like recently with an Iowa tight end, maybe, Noah Fant didn't work out that great, but he's a guy who can block. He's a guy who can catch. I was shocked when the Patriots didn't draft George Kittle. When was that? In 2017 or whatever that is. I feel like this could be kind of a chance for them to reset and take that obvious player. And it's kind of funny. There's been so many good Iowa prospects over the years. And given the connections that they have there with Kirk Ferentz and Brian Ferentz and everything, it's just weird that the Patriots consistently pass on them. So I don't know. Maybe this is the year that they, like I said, they kind of flip that script and they wind up taking some of these Iowa guys a little bit higher.
Yeah. I love it. That's the guy that he's on my list. Laporta is really on my kind of later round guys, not the first round picks Mike, because obviously I'd love to have him, but we're not going to get him. So it's I've got over that now. I've managed to move on, but it's he's one of the guys that I'm sort of hoping to. We have got a quick tight end question in the chat, so we'll just throw this out there and then we will move on to a different subject. Murph. Lee says, how do you even evaluate college tight ends when they've never played against NFL-sized players? Everyone 6'5", 250 is going to look good against future accountants. Very interesting one there, Lee.
Lee is brilliant. I
think that's fair. If you're if you're talking about a guy from like North Dakota State or something like that.
Joe Duncan.
Right. But and some of those guys, like, I mean, Dallas Goedert wound up being a really good tight end. So, and he was from one of the Dakotas. I think he was from like South Dakota or something like that. So I obviously there are times when it's tough to evaluate those type of players. And who's the guy out of Old Dominion this year? It's Zach Kuntz. Like, that's one where it might be kind of tough to evaluate him, even though he's got, I think elite skills as a 6'7" tight end with a crazy vertical, crazy three cone, crazy 40-yard dash.
And he really dominated. He dominated every down, and that's what you look for with the smaller school guys.
Definitely.
You didn't know my notes though. I've got down that he's got skinny legs. That's on my on my combined tight endage notes. I've got him with his numbers and this, that, and the other, and then skinny legs. So I wasn't sure on it.
I think you might be looking more like when I ask some people around about Mike Gesicki, like, what does Mike Gesicki bring? And it's like, great hands, great leaping ability, can kind of overpower guys in the red zone. Like, that's probably gonna be what Zach Kuntz is gonna be, like a third down guy or red zone guy. Might not wind up being the best blocker, but I don't know. I mean, in the case of like Darnell Washington, at Georgia, you're playing just the top competition every single year, every single game. Like, you're getting late into the college football playoff. Like, you see him against enough NFL talent, even if it's fringe NFL talent, that, you've got a pretty good idea of being able to scout him.
I've actually watched DBs run away from him.
Right, yeah.
This may be my favorite episode of the show. There's so much tight endage. I don't know if I can stand it anymore.
All right.
So because of that.
My turn.
A tight end with skinny legs is not a good sign.
It's true. It's very true.
Thanks, Chris.
Doug, so often we've seen Bill go into the draft and zig when we all thought that he was going to zag. One position of need that a lot of people aren't talking about right now, I think, is linebacker. Mm-hmm. Could you see him, actually going linebacker in the first round? I mean, if Trenton Simpson is there at 14, scooping him up and bringing him in, or a Drew Sanders,
Jack Campbell.
I don't know. It's almost kind of tough.
We're Iowa with Jack Campbell.
I do like Jack Campbell, but that's another one where it's like Iowa linebacker, crazy three cone, good athlete. Like, that's a guy that would usually mock to the Patriots over and over and over again. But like, I'm almost snake bitten on all these Iowa defenders that they haven't taken over the years. But I don't know. I mean, I wonder if the value, or like how Bill Belichick values linebackers and how he evaluates linebackers has shifted a little bit over the years, even since they took Dante Hightower and Jamie Collins within the first two rounds back in 2012 and 2013, because like they found Jawan Bentley in the 5th round, I think it was, and he's wound up, becoming a very solid starter for the Patriots. They use so many safeties now in the box, and they've got, Jabril Peppers, Adrian Phillips, and Kyle Duggar, all of whom are like small linebacker size safeties. They don't use a ton of linebackers on the field all at the same time. And you obviously saw them re-sign Jahlani Tavai last year, re-sign Mack Wilson and Raekwon McMillan this offseason. I think that you could still wind up seeing them extend Jawan Bentley if they feel like he can kind of be that captain of the future. I mean, would it shock me if Bill Belichick kind of zigged and took a linebacker in the first round? No, because that's what he's done, in the past with Dante Hightower and Jamie Collins and everything like that. But I feel like recent history has kind of shown that maybe the rest of the NFL doesn't value the same type of linebacker that Bill Belichick does. So he knows that he can wait a little bit longer. And it's funny because the Patriots probably would have drafted Jahlani Tavai back when the Lions did, but Matt Patricia wound up taking him in like the 2nd round. Bill Belichick was probably like, we can get this guy in the 3rd or 4th round. Matt Patricia kind of spoiled that. So I don't know. I would look at some of those bigger linebackers in the middle rounds, maybe more than the linebackers that most teams value in the early rounds.
Let's talk about the running back room right now. With the departure of why am I blanking? Who
Damian Harris.
Damian Harris. Thank you, darling. there is a need, even with the signings that they've made here, especially on third down. Is there a third down back in this draft that you enjoy and think would fit in here?
Not one that I've specifically seen. I know that it is a pretty strong class for running backs in this draft. Certainly wouldn't be shocked if they did wind up taking a running back pretty early. But I also wonder, and I guess things maybe have now shifted with Bill O'Brien back running the offense, but I find it kind of interesting. I found the James Robinson, Damian Harris swap interesting because I think that James Robinson is probably a better pass catcher on third down than Damian Harris was. Damian Harris just never really, developed in that role. And they've got Ramondre Stevenson at the top there, who is a great third down back.
Yep.
So now they've got 3 down backs there at the top of the depth chart.
But I think he can't take this beating again. He can't be on the field this often for another season.
So now maybe more than like swapping running backs in on certain downs, maybe now you see them swap James Robinson in on certain drives for Ramondre Stevenson, where they still stay on for 3 downs, but now you're kind of shifting guys depending on drives. And we saw that a little bit with Damian Harris last year. And I still have some faith in Pierre Strong, another guy who skinny legs, not the greatest thing to have skinny legs as a running back, but Pierre Strong does kind of have some skinny legs. But I think that he's another guy who can catch passes out of the backfield, could be a pretty effective early down back. Certainly wouldn't be shocked if they still wound up signing another free agent or taking a running back in maybe the top 4 rounds. But I do think that the James Robinson early signing kind of signaled something for what they might view out of running backs. And it's at least worth noting that Ty Montgomery's still on this team. Wasn't cut.
Yeah.
He had a big role early in the season, obviously got injured. But, if he winds up having another good summer, he'll probably wind up on the team in some sort of role and maybe be effective on third down for them.
What about Kevin Harris?
Who doesn't have skinny legs?
Here?
That's what I was going to say. He doesn't have skinny legs. That's a non-skinny legs running back you've got there in Kevin Harris.
That was honestly the thing. Like last year when you would see, at least in practice, like Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris on the field at the same time, it's just like this massive human being in Kevin Harris and then Pierre Strong.
Yeah, it's like a big brother and a little brother, and you just knew who got the last pork chop at dinner that night.
I'm not sure if I saw enough out of Kevin Harris last year to maybe predict a role for him this year. Like usually, I hate to say this because obviously running backs do develop and running backs do develop pretty well for the Patriots in general, but like you usually see something out of a running back in their rookie season. And I don't know. Kevin Harris could still wind up being a good player. He had some good moments last year, but I probably would have liked to have seen a little bit more out of him as a rookie.
There you go. I have been enamored. We're talking about third down backs with Deuce Vaughn and the film that I've seen from him.
I knew that had to come out as soon as you mentioned running backs. It's like he mentioned running backs so that he can find his way back.
Find my way back to Deuce Vaughn.
To his draft crush.
Deuce Vaughn reminds me a lot of Mr. White and what he's able to do in the open field. Obviously, he's not as big as James is, but the style of running and the fact that he can make multiple tacklers miss in the open field and gain positive yardage. Is he somebody that Bill could consider coming in here and say the 4th or 5th round and use a pick right there for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly possible. The size is just a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
Only 5'5", 179. Obviously,
that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping everybody sees that he's 5 foot nothing and just ignores him until the 6th.
He can run under everybody else's arms when they go to get him. He can run underneath. And I can say that as a short person. I'm allowed to say that.
Big giant, because we recently learned, I think Doug pointed it out, that Bill likes to view defensive players by the width of their backside. Was that you that said that?
Yeah,
and
it was.
I think he might do that on the front side too, on the offensive side.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I will say that out of maybe any coach in the NFL, like the Patriots haven't necessarily valued elite size at running back over the years. Like they had Deion Lewis in this offense. They currently have J.J. Taylor, who's one of the shorter running backs in the history of the NFL. Back in the day, they signed Roy Finch as an undrafted free agent. He was a really small running back as well. But, I mean, like, Deuce Vaughn at 5'5", 179, it's just like, it's kind of, you're reaching a new level there. Like, you, with even going from like Dion Lewis, who was, I think, 5'7", to J.J. Taylor, who was 5'6", like now you're talking about going down to 5'5". It's how low you can go really at that running back position while still having enough bulk. So I think that's the one thing I would be concerned about, just the weight. But no, he's a dynamic player, and there could certainly still be a role for him on third down. But I just wonder how low the Patriots would be willing to go as far as, height and stature at the running back position.
I'm telling you, if he's there in 6, I'm scooping him up. I really am. I really hope the rest of the NFL is just scared to death of his height. And he's there at 6 for Bill, because I just love watching this kid play. I can't stop. I really can't stop watching film of this young man. Claire, he's that dynamic. Take 10 minutes and go Google him.
I know, but
I
just think you have issues. I thought my tight end was bad, but you're really taking it to a new level now.
No, this is what I do in draft season, and it kills me every year because I get so enamored with certain players, and then Bill just breaks my heart.
He takes Cole Strange.
Tell me about it.
He takes Cole Strange, who I had mocked to the Patriots, but in the 4th round. I did. I was completely in the Rams camp there, thinking that he would be there at 120. So go ahead, Claire. I've been monopolizing.
You really have. We're going to get a reputation, the Patriots are, for liking small running backs with like thick legs, and not liking skinny leg tight ends, and liking defense guys with big butts and things like this. So this is Chris has asked a question actually that I wanted to ask you kind of back when it was a semi-topic, but is there any good punters out there in free agency? And Chris has asked, what are the Patriots going to do to fix the vacant punter position? I know you mentioned sort of it being a draft thing. Is there anyone out there, do you know, in free agency that they could kind of solidify it before the draft? Or do you think this is predominantly a draft selection that needs to be made?
I think it's a draft selection that needs to be made. I wouldn't be shocked if they still wind up signing, some punter out there in free agency.
We're going back to Rutgers, people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that they probably will wind up taking, either the Michigan punter, the Rutgers punter. It's Adam Corsak's the Rutgers guy. Right. Michael Moody's the Michigan guy. I think they've historically liked like developing punters, at least within the last 10, 15 years, going from Zoltan Mesko to Ryan Allen to Jake Bailey. So I think it's probably just going to be another step in that direction where I feel like they feel like they can take a punter right out of college and have him be effective enough. I think it's a little bit more difficult there at the kicker position, maybe, to evaluate exactly what a kicker can do in college.
We learned that. We learned that the hard way, didn't we?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, honestly, multiple times, not even just with a Rohrwasser pick, but signing. I'm blanking on his name, but the Michigan kicker that I think is still even. What was that?
Viscaino.
No. Who was the undrafted Michigan kicker that's still? Well, everyone's screaming at their phones or everything right now, but no, I think it's going to wind up being through the draft. I'm not sure if they even currently have a 5th round pick right now, but I'm sure they'll wind up picking one up, either in the 4th or 5th round, just because they do value that position so much. They want to get their guy. And quite honestly, like, I know that Jake Bailey's career went downhill after a couple of years, but they've been pretty good at evaluating punters through the years. Mesko was decent for a few years. We've been really
spoiled.
Ryan Allen was so. I'm shocked that Ryan Allen kind of disappeared from the league. Because he was a good punter here for a while, and then Jake Bailey
should have been the MVP of that Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, it's true. He was fantastic. So no, that's I think the direction that they wind up going there at punter.
Makes sense. But, we had a question. I need to find it now. Oh, sorry, go on then, Murph.
Our good friend Phil A. Perry, 3rd-time parent. Congratulations out there to Phil, and had another little baby boy. Has been on the Zay Flowers bandwagon for quite some time now, and I can't really argue with it. Could you see the Patriots going wide receiver in the first round? It's something I got into it yesterday with an idiot that I won't name on here, a blue checked idiot, um, who went through the list of wide receivers taken after Julian Edelman way back in 2012, and I pointed out, and quite rightly, that only one of these guys was taken in the first round. Only two of these guys had been taken in the top 3 rounds, and or the first or second round, and there hasn't been a lot of draft capital spent there. Hence the reason why it's really been a dice roll at this position. Do you think this is a year that Bill could go wide receiver early, and who would you target?
I mean, I love the idea of drafting a wide receiver in the first round. I was all aboard the Jackson Smith and Jigba train. I like Zay Flowers. Not quite as high on Quentin Johnston. I know there are people that really love him, but just I'm not quite seeing that on tape right now. And
the fight's not there.
No, and I don't know. I mean, I think that is a player where, like, I know that he did compete against some higher level teams, but I do think that he at TCU was kind of able to dominate some lower level talent at times. And I don't think that he's going to be able to be as dominant at the NFL level. Who knows? I might wind up being proven wrong there. But my issue, though, is that beyond, even I'd throw Jordan Addison in there as well. I like Jordan Addison. Beyond those top 3 guys that I like, Flowers, Addison, and Smith and Jigba, I don't love the depth at wide receiver in this class.
It's got to be early.
Yeah, I think that, like, you either take one of those guys or you just deal with what you've got at the wide receiver position. But I mean, I think that Jackson Smith and Jigba could be a better version of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that that's his future in the NFL. Like, I would like write him down for 100 catches every single year. I just think that he's going to be that type of player. I like Zay Flowers as well. I would say that in most years, you might be looking at Zay Flowers as maybe like a second round wide receiver prospect. But he might have to sneak into the first round just because this isn't necessarily the greatest class for wide receivers. And with Jordan Addison, didn't test quite as well. Undersized guy. I think he was only like 175 pounds, something like that. 4'9" at 175. It's not a draft killer, but you also don't want to take that player in the top 10. But I do think that there's some value in Smith and Jigba and in Jordan Addison, where they were absolutely fantastic in 2021. Had down seasons in 2022. So I think that you can actually get some value on those guys by dropping down a little bit now this year. The issue, at least with Jackson Smith and Jigba, is that you probably just look at Juju Smith-Schuster as being that slot wide receiver at this point. And they already now have 4 starting caliber wide receivers in Juju, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, and Tyquan Thornton. 2 of those guys, Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne, will be free agents after the season, I believe. So I think that, maybe they look to the future for that position. Maybe they actually even wind up cutting one of those wide receivers. But I like it. I would still do it. I would still consider it.
Okay.
I'm just not quite sure after what they did at wide receiver in free agency if one of those guys is still one of the best fits, unfortunately.
And my point being is that if they do this, if they go wide receiver early, is this going to stunt what they did last year with Thornton? Thornton had a difficult time after getting hurt in camp, reintegrating himself into the offense, and I would really like to see. I mean, stupidly, he decided to try to show everybody that he's not just a beanpole and go up and smack into linebackers, and that's the reason he ended up on the injured list. But hopefully he learned from that, and I think it would be to his detriment. And I really like this kid. I like what he can do with a football. I love what he can do with his legs. And I think if you take a Zay Flowers, or if you take one of these guys that is going to play on the outside, it's just going to hurt what could possibly be a really good prospect in the Slim Reaper.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. That's another one where I wish I was more optimistic about Tyquan Thornton, but he played a lot last year. Like he played more snaps than Kendrick Bourne. which you can argue like why that was the case, because I
Right.
think that Kendrick Bourne probably would have been more effective. But like Tyquan Thornton was on the field last year. And I don't think that that's actually something that
No.
every Patriots fan
But-
even realizes.
As a rebut to that,
Yeah.
Mac got really enamored with Myers,
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
and he was not looking the entire field.
Yeah.
One, he didn't have enough time to get
No.
to Thornton downfield.
Yeah.
But it was just Myers is open. I'm going to hit Myers. I'm going to move the chains.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that Myers isn't here anymore.
Right.
It's because Bill saw what I saw. Well, I saw what Bill saw,
Right.
and decided that we
That's
need
better.
to move on, because we just can't have him going to his whoopee or his binky every single time that he only has 1.5 seconds to get the ball out. And I think I think you're going to see a much different Mac Jones this year
Mm-hmm.
in scanning the field and using his entire repertoire of wide receivers that didn't happen last year. Can you agree, or
No.
throw water on that if you want?
No, I think it's certainly going to be like. I think it'll be interesting to see who is the most targeted wide receiver this year. Whether it's
Or tight end.
probably right or tight end. No, absolutely. I think the most likely players would probably be Juju or Hunter Henry. I would say, just because Henry's been in the offense for the longest at this point, or almost the longest, and then Juju's that slot guy. But no, I think they do wind up spreading the ball around a little bit more. And Tyquan, I'm cautiously optimistic. I still like the speed. I still like what he can bring to the table. I would say that there's part of me that has a hard time envisioning him being more than like a 40 to 50 catch per season player. But that's fine as a second round pick. Like if he can develop into that and still get 700 or 800 yards, and that's totally fine. I'm just curious to see how that career develops, because
I got you.
it was a tricky pick as an undersized guy. Love the speed, but I'd like to see a little bit more this summer before I'm like fully in on Tyquan Thornton.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I agree. I want to throw this one out there quickly before we run out of time. And Murph hates it, so I like asking the question even more, because he seems to hate it for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I don't know why. I really don't get it. But Doug, I have to ask. If I only get someone on the show just once before the draft, I do need to ask about your draft crush. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be your draft crush to the Patriots. This can be that guy that if you had any team, you'd be like, I want him. Because there are guys out there that we all love, but we know the Patriots aren't going to pick them. Maybe there isn't a need or that kind of thing. So it's I want to kind of take your Patriots hat off a little bit. I just want to know which guy has really caught your eye.
Put your Seahawks hat on.
There you go. I'll throw my Seahawks helmet on this.
There you
go. I'd say two guys. I really like Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon. I think that he's gonna be a fantastic player. I like the way it's no surprise that he's rising up draft boards. I still think there's gonna be good cornerbacks available after him, and then my biggest one is just someone that I already talked about, and that's Jackson Smith-Njigba. Like he was so good in 2021. He was better than Chris Olave. He was better than Garrett Wilson. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. was on that team. Jackson Smith-Njigba was the guy on that Ohio State offense.
And
back
it wasn't
in
because
2021.
everybody was focusing on everybody else.
Right. No, I mean, it was like he was just that good. Like he was the security blanket for CJ Stroud that year. And after 2021, it was like, all right, yeah, I mean, Olave and Garrett Wilson are in this draft, but like the real guy is Jackson Smith-Njigba. Like that's the guy that you really want.
He's the guy that you really have to game plan for coming out of this draft.
And I think that
so much about the Patriots don't have anybody to game plan for.
Right.
If you grabbed him, if you're grabbing Zay Flowers, you're not game planning around Zay Flowers. You're really not. But this kid, you have to.
No, absolutely. And like I think he's also got like decent size. He's like 6'1", 190, something like that. So like, I already mentioned the Amon-Ra St. Brown comparison. I also think that like I don't think anyone is Julian Edelman, because I don't think that anyone is as fearless at the position as Julian Edelman. It's just like there was an element of his game that just doesn't really exist for a lot of other players. But Jackson Smith-Njigba does have very similar like agility attributes and pass catching attributes and everything like that.
Just fearless.
And I don't know. I think that he's as close to a sure thing. I know that last year went poorly for him. He had the hamstring injury, didn't wind up playing the college football playoff game. And that kind of tanked his draft stock a little bit, but no, he's just my guy in this draft. I think he's gonna be phenomenal.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Doug, first of all, I want to thank everybody in the chat room today for some fantastic questions, and Claire, bobbing and weaving through all of that for us. But no, Dougie, I want to thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. It is you have now risen up the draft board for Claire, and
Totally.
and please tell everybody what you've got going on, where they're going to be able to find you on social media. Maybe next time you'll type it in down at the bottom instead of just Doug, and people will find you over there on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kide. Go to E2G Sports, writing a bunch of stuff about the Patriots, a bunch of other teams on there as well. Doing the Pats Chat podcast with Michael Hurley, so check that out as well wherever you can get your podcasts. That's where you can find me, and this was absolutely fantastic as always. Claire and Murph, it's always fun talking to you guys.
It really is a blast. Thank you for always picking up the phone when I call, man. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic Easter with the family, and we'll talk to you again real soon, maybe right after the draft. We've got to get those draft nicks like you in there before we're running out of time.
No, absolutely.
Running out of time.
I'm looking forward to it. All right. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks again, bud.
Yep.
Thanks, take care.
Doug Kide sounds like dried. Go find him on social medias. Go ahead, Claire. Take us out.
Well, that is a wrap for another edition of One Patriots Place, brought to you by the E2G Sports Network. Here for you each and every Tuesday, pretty much. So, yeah, you can count on us, folks. He was Thomas Murphy. I was Clazzy Clare Cooper. Please do not forget to join in next time. A huge thanks, obviously, to Doug Kide for his time and his insight and his and love. Yes, he has moved up the ranks, as Murph said, in the top guest. Podcast list, whatever.
Maybe I'll have some art on my walls next time.
Well, with that note then, folks, thank you very much for listening or watching. Tune in next time and go Pats.